Hi, my name's Bex Griffiths.
And I'm Anwen Jones.
And we're both herbalists in Bristol. We run a clinic, which you can see behind us, and we do a lot of teaching. We've been teaching for the last 8 years, and the clinic's been open for the last 10.
And this is we've been making a series of videos entitled Building Resilience, and this is our 6th video. And the theme running through all these videos is how people can maximise their well-being at the moment, particularly around things that support the immune system. So we've talked about about herbs which help with stress and with sleep. We've talked about mineral-rich herbs that can help increase our nutrition. We've talked about immune tonic herbs, and all these things are about kind of building our resilience, so building our strength up and making us more able to fight off infection.
So as herbalists, we like to look at the body and society holistically and look at well-being. So it's these videos were produced in response to the pandemic, but we didn't want to go straight into looking at immunity. Straight into looking at viruses and how to support people who have COVID-19. We wanted to look at how do you enhance well-being, because that's something that is often missed out. People go straight to treating something rather than supporting the whole body.
And we've really felt as well that was really important in as all of this began and everybody's starting to get very worried about their health. And so it's looking at simple and effective things that we can do every single day, which can improve our overall vitality. And so it's not just about treating a disease, it's about being as well as possible, and that applies all the time.
So it's supporting the terrain of the body, and that's what each of those videos has been doing. We looked at the mineral tonics, like Hammy said. We looked at the immune tonics, which we'll talk about when we talk about convalescence. We've done a couple of herb walks, so we're showing you all the kind of native spring herbs that are up that can really support well-being. And now we're going to look at immunity. So this video is about acute immunity, what to do when you feel those first symptoms that might mean that you're coming down with a virus, like itchy, scratchy throat, maybe a cough, feeling lethargic, tired.
And this could apply to any virus, so all the coughs and colds and flus, as well as the current COVID-19 situation. So we're keeping this quite general.
And really non-specific. We are supporting people with COVID-19, and we are coming up with more individual tailored protocols, but the base is kind of all this self-care that either you can do or someone who's looking after you could do and could help you with. And that's something that we've always wanted to teach, is these are the things that you can do in your home with really easily accessible herbs and ingredients that you can get from local shops and use as your medicine, as a kitchen medicine.
So we're not saying that anything that we're advising is a cure for viruses or for the cold or flu, but they're the things that we can do to really help ourselves manage the symptoms and help us manage any illness more effectively. And there's such a huge scope for this right now, because so many people are dealing with illness when they're a little bit more isolated than usual and they're at home. Hopefully not on their own entirely, but lots of people are way more isolated, and some people are on their own at home. So the scope for being able to find things in your kitchen that can help you manage symptoms that are not serious enough to mean that you have to go to hospital, I think that's a really important part of self-care right now.
So it's really good to start with all this self-care and self-help herbal advice as soon as you start to get the symptoms, and not when you've had it for 1 or 2 weeks and are not getting better, because it's much harder to treat at that point. So as soon as you start to feel not well, start with some of the things that we're suggesting. And what we're really hoping to do is to limit the severity. So maybe you'll still get symptoms, but you won't get as ill as you might, and hopefully you'll recover more quickly. And so I was saying before about this is quite a non-specific advice around helping people who may be getting ill with viruses. And we've put on the Radical Herbalism website, radicalherbalism.org.uk, we've put a whole list of more specific COVID-19 protocols written by herbalists from around the world that you may want to look at some of the herbs that are being used, more specific herbs that are being used there.
So I can put the link to that website in the comments so that you don't have to scrabble for a pen.
So the first thing we want to talk about is diaphoretics. So
yeah, what do we mean by the word diaphoretic? It's an old-fashioned word, but it used to be used in much more common parlances when we're treating colds and flus and fevers at home. So do you want to give us a good definition?
they promote sweating, and we use them to help enhance the fever. Herbalists don't suppress fever. We don't believe in suppressing fevers unless you've had them for a prolonged period of time or there's seizures. You want to enhance the body's own response to having a virus. So what's happening is the body's raising the body temperature internally, so the virus can't replicate as well and live as well in the environment. So you don't want to suppress it, because that's actually stopping your body's natural defense response against the virus. So we support the fever and help by promoting sweating and helping cool the body.
So we're not anti-using, painkillers. Like things like paracetamol can be useful if people have got a lot of pain, but we wouldn't advocate using something like that simply in response to a fever, because of the we believe that this fever is a really essential process in the body. Especially
at the beginning, it's very different for a prolonged fever, but at the beginning you don't want to just be reaching for paracetamol or Calpol. You want to just help the body by drinking these diaphoretic teas, the fever tea we call it. So some of the herbs that help with that are yarrow, which we talk about, and I show you the leaf of yarrow in our herb walk in the herb garden. Elderflower, which is about to flower now.
It's not quite there yet, but it's just on the brink.
Probably mid-May, you'll see elderflower. So elderflower, mint, thyme, sage, rosemary, a lot of those mint family herbs are really good at helping promote the diaphoretic effect that we're looking for. So as soon as you start to feel ill, you're going to boil yourself up. Well, use hot water, make a tea. So it's 1 teaspoon. You can mix either of those herbs or have one of those herbs. A spoonful in hot water, leave for 20 minutes, drink warm, drink hot, and drink about 2 to 3 cups a day.
So another herb that we might use as a diaphoretic would be ginger. So ginger is something that you're likely to be able to get hold of quite easily in the supermarket or in fruit and veg shops or in the local corner shop. And what we tend to do with ginger to make a much more effective diaphoretic, so rather than just chopping it up and pouring hot water on it and adding a slice of lemon, which is what sometimes people do for a lemon and ginger tea, and that makes a nice cup of tea and it can be helpful to settle the stomach. But if you really want a good diaphoretic effect from ginger, you need to chop it up, cover it in water and boil and simmer for at least 20 minutes. And then the liquid that comes out then is much thicker and much hotter and spicier and is a more effective diaphoretic. And
it's really great when you're feeling cold. So when you're feeling really hot, I'd stick to just those fever teas. But if you're feeling that kind of cold, shivery feeling, then starting with those ginger decoctions are really great. And we say decoction because it's a root, so you can add cardamom pods, star anise we really like, and boil them up all together. And having a foot bath of ginger tea is really great. I mean, foot baths in general are a really amazing way of getting the herbs into the body.
And warming you up when you have those chills. Because a lot of people say to me, but I didn't have a fever, I just felt cold. And that is the sign of a fever, because as your body's attempting to raise the temperature, then it makes you feel cold.
So ginger decoctions in foot baths, a fever tea in foot baths, really traditional things to put in apple cider vinegar into the foot baths, and to get flannels, tepid warm flannels on the back of the neck, on the head, soaked in fever tea with apple cider vinegar. We've had a few people throughout our courses whose parents are European, and they've used just apple cider vinegar and wrapped their feet around in a flannel to help bring down the fever. And I've done it with my son with fever tea in a flannel on his forehead, on his back, wrapped his feet round with apple cider vinegar added.
And it just helps the body to move through that fever process, which is crucial for immunity.
So diaphoretics, ginger being really important, onion is also really important. You can use onion in 2 different ways. You could use an onion syrup, make an onion syrup, or you can make an onion poultice.
So we've put some links on our website for all these recipes. So the recipe for the onion syrup and the onion poultice, and they're very simple and straightforward. You just need an onion, any onion from your cupboard, and you chop the onion finely, and then you layer it in a jar with sugar, and the sugar draws out the juice from the onion, which you can then use as a cough syrup. Or for the poultice, you just mash up the onion and you put it on the chest. And you can either then add some heat as a hot water bottle, or you don't have to. And the onion itself is very drawing. And the thing is with onion and all of these pungent spices that we've talked about is that as well as being expectorant, as well as being antimicrobial, they're also very moving in the body. So what they're doing is they're improving circulation, which is really helping get the immune cells around the body and get them to where they need to be. So encouraging circulation and blood flow to the core, particularly to the lungs, is the goal of all these treatments.
And alongside that, we talk about mustard foot baths, a really old traditional way of supporting the circulation and getting all those like really pungent oils into the body. So a big tablespoon of mustard powder into a foot bath, into a warm foot bath, and that will really help circulation. So garlic is also a really important kitchen ingredient that we use a lot of. It's the bulb of the garlic, and you need to chop it or squeeze it, and it's the breaking down of the garlic that produces this new oil that's really antimicrobial and really enhances the body's ability to fight infection. So you can just chop up 2 or 3 cloves of garlic throughout the day, eat them with yogurt or toast or a cracker, something so it's not too caustic and irritating to the stomach on its own. We make garlic honey. You can make garlic with salt as a kind of infusion for like a really itchy, scratchy, sore throat.
You can put garlic oil directly on the chest, and we always do, if we're helping support the lungs, we always put something on the chest. So gently infusing herbs and spices in oil can be really helpful, and you put it on the chest and as well on the back where the lungs are, all the way down to the base.
So how we do that is we get a heat-proof bowl and put it over hot water, so you're not cooking the oil and cooking the spices. You're gently heating the oil with chopped up garlic, chopped up ginger, a little bit of chilli. It's a really easy chest rub to make, and we always suggest that if you can't get hold of one of our chest rubs, our chest rubs have like an infused oil, but it'll have lots of essential oils as well, like eucalyptus and thyme and lavender, rosemary, black pepper. So that's really good. But if you haven't got access to that, this really simple chest rub is great. And as soon as you you can smell the oils infusing. After maybe a couple of hours, you can start to lather it. And you've got to remember that your ribs are protecting your lungs, so you've kind of got the back and the front and the side. So like if it's really feeling painful, you want to lather all your chest maybe twice a day with that oil. Then we have vinegars. And these recipes, as Amun says, are going to be on our website. We have like the 4 Thieves vinegar or fire cider vinegar, and they're basically different recipes of using apple cider vinegar with lots of pungent herbs. So the fire cider vinegar, which came from Rosemary Gladstar originally, was...
She's an American herbalist, and there was she's made it very famous in the US, and it's something that we've been doing in the UK for a bit more recently.
Chopping onions, garlic, lemon, we use turmeric and rosemary and horseradish root, which is very pungent, and infusing that in vinegar for 2 to 3 weeks. So we talk about this on our first video, the mineral tonic video. We talk about how to make a mineral vinegar. So have a look at that if you want to know more. And then the 4 Thieves vinegar is like we use like rosemary and sage, and
it's all the antimicrobial herbs. So it might have some of the traditional recipes will have slightly more obscure ones in, like wormwood and rue. But for our purposes, you can just use all the kitchen herbs that you can get your hands on. And it's called the 4 Thieves vinegar because it was made famous by grave robbers in plague times who used to douse themselves in it before as a protection. But actually it's just a lot of very useful herbs and spices with all these kind of warming oils, which is what we need for immunity.
So we kind of make a mix of those vinegars, and it's something to do now, so you have it in your kitchen cabinet, and you can use it as soon as you start to feel ill. A little bit of vinegar and some warm water, drinking that 2-3 times a day, teaspoon, 2-3-4 times a day.
So we'll put a link in the comments, and it'll all be uploaded on our website. So if you go to our website, there'll be a page about self-care where we list some of these common kitchen ingredients and some of these easy recipes that will hopefully help you look after yourself if you started to feel ill. And then, of course, it's the lost art of convalescence is hugely important when recovering from any illness, and that is when you're in that period where you're starting to feel better, but you're not full strength just yet. And I think that looking after yourself in that time is almost as important as looking after yourself throughout your illness. It's a phase of the illness that needs to be, you shouldn't be hurrying it back into full strength activities at that point.
And this is actually particularly specific for COVID-19 because there are some people who've recovered and they kind of get back into life and then get ill again. So it's really important to rest as much as you can, go as slowly as you can, and really look after yourself during that time. Like focus on like mineral tonics, focus on like the immune tonics. And we talk about like taking seaweed broths and mushroom broths throughout being ill and as a prevention and afterwards. A really gentle way of improving immunity and kind of building yourself back up.
So simple food that's nutritious, that's warming, and plenty of sleep.
And so we talk about sleep herbs and herbs that help with stress in our third video, so that could be worth looking at, just to think about all the herbs to help. It's a anxious time to live in. It's anxious, anxiety provoking to get this illness. So like to really support the nervous system in recovery is great. And then there are people have been asking us about supplements. I mean, obviously it's as important to get as much from your food as possible, to eat as much nutritious food, eat the rainbow, as many different coloured fruit and vegetable as possible, get good sources of protein and fat. But if you were thinking about supplements, particularly if you are vulnerable or you know that you get ill a lot over the winter, looking at vitamin D. So obviously as the sun comes out, we can get vitamin D from the sun, and that's where we mostly get it from. But you could be taking up to 5,000 IU of vitamin D a day.
Particularly if you're somebody who was vitamin D deficient throughout the winter and you came into this spring vitamin D deficient, then it may be that you haven't managed to get enough in the sunshine that we've had of late to really bring your levels back up to where they need to be for immunity.
And then there's vitamin C and zinc. So if you look on our website, you'll see more recommendations there. So that's the last bit of this video. So it's a series of...
so ideally we'd like you to watch them all because they all go well together.
And they build on each other. And we will come back with another one on inflammation. Have a look at our website. We are supporting people with COVID, and we're trying to gift people who've lost their jobs, who can't afford our medicines. So if you want to look at our website, there's a page on COVID-19 and there's a way of donating money if you wanted to. We're also starting to teach a online foundation course, which we've been teaching for the last 10 years, but now we've gone online, so it's a bit more accessible to other people, and dropped our prices in reflection to what's happening with people's access to money. So we hope you've enjoyed these videos.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.